They want their child to be able to read and write.
But Portland's superintendent doesn't care whether his students are here legally or not.
I know what's a drain on our country. It's ignorance.
Let me tell you, it can be hard to get people to open up to us on camera, even when they're not in prison.
Sorry, it gets hard to talk about this.
A look at life inside Oregon's only women's prison and the help they're getting for the day they get out. And you probably noticed by now this isn't your usual primetime entertainment. On this special post-State of the Union edition of The Story, we're playing a rousing game of Where's Blumenauer? Here's the story. And here we are, showing up fashionably late, walking in like we own the place. Sorry we're a little late tonight. Hi everybody, welcome to The Story. I'm Dan Haggerty, coming to you in prime time. We usually meet here at 6 o'clock, but we got bumped tonight because of the State of the Union. Check out this graphic back here, the art guys. It's been a long time, that's the Capitol. They wanted me to mention that to you. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about the State of the Union though. I wasn't there, I watched it just like you did. I was wondering though if you noticed this little Oregon connection to tonight's viral moment when Nancy Pelosi seemed to rip up the president's speech at the end. Take a look. While the rest of the world is staring at torn pages, Oregon sees the foreground. And you're going to watch Senator Ron Wyden walk into frame, apparently trying to beat traffic, not wasting any time. Is this the wrong video? We're teasing this at this point. I'm going to have to show this to you again later. Here we go. As she stands up, a little jump cut. She's tearing up the pages, and we used the wrong fares, my guy. Ron Wyden taking off. He wants to beat traffic. He didn't waste any time. Now look, I don't want to waste your time tonight like we kind of did there for a second, but I'm not going to be breaking down the president's speech or the Democrats' comments afterward. Nightly News did a great job of that, but I thought you'd enjoy this just in case you missed it. In our big story tonight, we ask your questions to the superintendent of the largest school district in Oregon about undocumented students in Portland schools. Superintendent Guadalupe Guerrero met with Kristen Severance after watching our latest episode of Inside Woodlawn, when teachers and students told us a first grader got deported. A lot of you had questions after this. You reached out to us using the hashtag HeyDan. We learned that 7-year-old Karen's father had entered the United States illegally in 2018 and expected to be deported after a court hearing later this month. But before that ever happened, that hearing, he sent his daughter back to Guatemala where her mother lives. This immigration story is very complicated, as they all are. But we've learned that it is not an uncommon thing in Portland public schools. You had questions after this story, and so did we. Kristen took them to the superintendent for answers.
How common is a story like Karen's in PPS schools, where she at the end was not deported, but her father was going through immigration proceedings? He sends her back to their original country. How common is that?
Well, unfortunately, over the last several years, we've seen an escalation of these kinds of stories. And my fear is, how far is this going to go? It's parents, it's students and employees. Who's next?
Portland public schools have a clear policy. Undocumented students are safe inside their schools. The policy states if, before ICE were to enter any school, they'd have to notify you in person. Talk about why is that a policy, and has that ever happened here?
It is true. If an agent were to present themselves at the front door of one of our school communities, they have to contact my office, and they will have a clear response ready for them. Schools, like churches, should be sanctuaries. We're in the business of taking care of children and youth.
A 1982 U.S. Supreme Court case ruled that public schools must educate all students, including illegal immigrants. PPS school officials don't even ask about a student or family's immigration status.
You don't see that in any documentation that we request that families provide. We're going to serve every child that comes through our doors.
A lot of the comments after the story were, Karen's dad broke the law, and tell the kids in her class that's why she's not here anymore. What do you say to that?
Well, I think we want to have a response that's developmentally appropriate. I think what we saw in your segment is the struggle that her teacher had in trying to describe why one of their cherished classmates is no longer sitting at her desk. And I think he shared that she's likely going to a new school. And I really hope that that's true, because what I would not want is for any child not to have the opportunity to learn.
We don't know if Karen is back in school, but family members say she's in Guatemala with her mother. A lot of critics say having undocumented students in a school system is too much of a financial burden.
I know what's a drain on our country, it's ignorance. And so I can't think of a better antidote than making sure everybody actually has a well-rounded education. So it's important that we have an educated populace. I think what's lacking is civic discourse. I think every dollar we invest in children and youth pays dividends in our ability to be a strong community. And so for me, this isn't a story about a child having done something criminal, or a family, and we have many examples of this, who have gone through extreme measures to provide an opportunity for their children, which I think any parent would be willing to take a risk for. I don't consider it a criminal act that they want their child to be able to read and write.
Okay, Kristen Severance joining us now in the studio. You told me earlier before this story aired that this isn't specific to Portland Public Schools. They're not an outlier here with this policy.
Right, so this was a Supreme Court ruling. So every single state has to provide a free education to undocumented students. Here in Oregon, the School Boards Association put out guidelines about this, saying that if districts did cooperate with ICE, that could interfere with providing those students an education.
What's the latest on the little girl? What do we know now about Karen?
So we know she was sent back to Guatemala. We know that her mother lives there. We don't know if Karen has been reunited with her mother. Family members here say that's who she was going to live with, but we reached out to her mother. We don't know if they're back together, and we won't know until later this month during a hearing if her father is in Guatemala or still here in the U.S.
All right, we know you'll follow up on things. If you want to follow up with some questions to Kristen or to the story, use hashtag #HeyDan. Kristen, thank you.
You bet.
And that brings us to our quote of the day, and it is from Superintendent Guerrero, and it's going to sound familiar because you just heard it at the end of Kristen's story, but we want to spend a little more time with it. He said, "I don't consider it a criminal act that they want their child to be able to read and write. Look, wanting your kids to be able to read and write is not illegal, but crossing into the country without documentation is. We have systems in place to control immigration, but schools are not one of them. ICE enforces, schools teach. They each have their lane." Now, the story Kristen just told us actually is a story of the system working exactly the way it's supposed to. Karen's dad came here illegally. He was caught. He was processed. He was released into the U.S. awaiting his day in court. His time ran out, and he sent his daughter Karen back home to Guatemala. Everyone did what they were supposed to do. Everyone played their part. ICE, Dad, Karen, and Woodlawn. And now yours is to have an opinion on the balance between compassion and policy. So again, the reason that we were on kind of at a weird time tonight is because of the State of the Union. Most of our senators and our representatives were there, except for some who did decide to skip it out of protest, and that includes Oregon Congressman Earl Blumenauer. He says he has chosen not to dignify President Trump's, quote, parade of lies about health care, his persistent exaggeration, and his personal attacks. While he wasn't there in person, Blumenauer did invite an Oregon mother fighting for lower drug prices to go in his place. Senator Jeff Merkley, who did attend, also brought a guest fighting against high drug prices. Living a life behind bars.
We think that people forgot about us, and that's not the case.
But not a life sentence. It's a program called Life for the day they're able to walk free. When the story continues. The story we're getting to now was more than a year in the making. We showed you part one last night inside Oregon's only women's prison. If you watched, you met Vanessa, Amy, and Mariah. They're each serving time behind bars, and they were really open about why they were there and what life is like being in prison. Maggie Vespa joining me now. We got a lot of feedback from people after the first episode using hashtag #HeyDan to tell us what they thought of the piece. And I was happy to see they didn't find it to be sensational or some story about the sad life behind bars, because it's about people putting their lives back together.
Exactly, and that's what part 2 is going to focus on tonight. I mean, more than a year ago, one of our executive producers here at KGW, her name is Mila Mamitsa, came to me and said she had heard about this program. It's called the Life Program, and it's been quietly operating for years inside that prison, Oregon's only women's prison. And with it, these women work to prepare for an insanely overwhelming day, the day they walk out of prison and they're free.
Welcome. It's Wednesday, yes? All right, good morning. Good morning. So KGW is here. We can wave.
This is life in prison.
So on our list is appearance, customer service. If you have a retail store, professional shop, yes. Business name.
More specifically, this is the Life Program, a 32-week course that teaches women at Coffee Creek Correctional Facility how to start a small business.
Dora's going to man our emotional regulation. We're going to do that.
Every Wednesday morning, they start with something most of these women have never tried: meditation.
Feel your eyebrows resting. Your forehead is becoming relaxed and smooth. Let your shoulders gently sink downward.
Every day we start with like emotion regulation, and at first I thought that was kind of dumb, but close your eyes and pretend you're at the beach or wherever, someone's talking really monotone and slow. But you kind of get into it after doing it for a little while.
Become more relaxed with each breath.
Kind of just brings us together as a group, a couple minutes of quiet, which is hard to get in this place.
Gently open your eyes, feeling alert, calm, and full of energy.
Okay. What'd you learn from your focus groups? Anything?
Then,
Your business idea is good? Business
class
idea-
can begin.
But it's important to have your niche market.
And what can you tell me about the Life Program?
Life Program is amazing.
It's really personal. It's really vulnerable to start a business.
The Life Program, or Lifelong Information for Entrepreneurs, is run and funded by Mercy Corps Northwest.
So you're going to tell your partner really what your business is just outstanding that they offer it here.
Most of the women in it are less than 2 years from getting out of prison.
It is okay to end relationships.
And to prepare, they also work on changing how they see themselves.
It's okay.
It teaches you a different way to think, teaches you about success, it teaches you, you can take things from like business prospects and turn it into life prospects.
Each woman in the Life Program has an idea for a small business or a nonprofit.
I want to start a nonprofit organization. I'm going to title it Living and Surviving Off the Land.
I've learned how to crochet, and I can put anything like in a blanket. So I was thinking about doing personalized baby blankets.
Well, my business plan is I want to be a part of advocacy program for the justice involved. I personally do not think prison should be the only option for most.
Your customer base should.
Month after month,
We're going to talk only about our own businesses.
Yeah.
we watched as they drew up budgets,
What do you need? Y'all got this? Financial records?
discussed marketing campaigns and consumer demos, and practiced their pitch
My business,
to investors.
I'm going to start adolescent age kids to get the opportunity to learn survival skills.
Whether it be job sourcing,
Every detail matters.
resources and help, inpatient treatment.
To start a business, you're going to have to figure out all of the money that you're going to need to, like, for your phone, for your computer, for your insurance, for your office space. And so it kind of really gets you brainstorming about all the physicalities of what you're going to need to start a business.
These are just a couple of blankets that I've made.
By April, Amy was showing us photos of her inventory.
These are just a couple that I've made. This is my friend's grandson. He loves the Ghostbusters.
We've also spent our entire lives being told who we are.
They also acknowledge starting a business is hard. Starting one when you're just out of prison is harder.
I'm sure I'm going to get out and probably end up at a fast food restaurant for a little bit, because that's just what I do, But also be marketing that whole time. You know what I mean? While I'm there. Oh, I'm taking an order, but I'm talking to you about what I plan to do. Oh, and then they're like, oh, well, hey, when you start doing that, give me a call. Matter of fact, let me give you my name and my number.
Slowly, the business plan becomes part of a larger plan.
And I'm branching out
I'll be branching out outside.
We make a plan in the class about our transition, what it's going to look like, you know, right down to little things that we wouldn't normally think of.
Here are the words.
And deep down,
Achiever.
this is the point of life.
We really ask each person to go through each of these areas of life and create a post-release plan. Whether that's your plan for employment, your plan for relationships, your plan for self-care.
Life's transition plan lays out specific to-do lists for the day these women leave prison, then for 30 days later, and then for 60 to 90 days later.
So if you take a real simple idea like medication, before I get out, my plan is going to be to talk to the doctor in here about which pharmacy I'm going to send my medication to when I get out. And then it's going to be, 30 days post-release. It's going to be, go to that pharmacy, make sure my medication's there my first day. So by the time I need it, I make sure I have it. It's going to be figure out my insurance to see how much my insurance will pay for that medication. And then 60 to 90 days, it's going to be stabilize myself on my medication, make sure that I have a job, or make sure I have a type of income that will be able to support it.
Sounds great. The problem is, for a lot of women here, planning and following through on their plans isn't something they're used to.
But I think it's hard for them to shift their mind from, I'm a person who's at the whim of the experience I'm having right now, versus I'm a person who can take charge of my life, who will take charge of my life.
This is it.
So they build a very real business plan.
I'll be selling the stuff that normally Alaskans would be buying.
And in the process, become familiar with detail.
Why are customers going to come to your business?
Patience.
Vanessa here would like to start an advocacy program for women and children in the Salem area.
Budgets.
Yeah.
All of the things they'll need.
I didn't understand what I was going to learn until it came,
to rebuild their lives.
Yeah. But think really critically about who your market is.
As a bonus, the class comes with credits from Portland Community College.
They take me saying to you, I went and got a degree and now I'm looking at the world a little differently. Can you support me?
Over the 8-month course, confidence takes shape.
You do see it happen over time, especially with a program that takes this long. Like, you don't see it in the beginning, but over time you see people start opening up and just letting who they are come out, and you just learn so much from one another.
Okay.
And it appears to be working. Staff at Mercy Corps Northwest started life in 2012. They wanted to help women fresh out of prison avoid homelessness and addiction, and avoid ending up back in prison. Nationally, 37% of men and women released from prison are reincarcerated within 3 years. In Oregon, that number drops to 19%. Among the women who have so far graduated from life, 9.7% have ended up back in prison after 3 years.
Even for the most confident of women, prior to envisioning herself as a boss, a lot can happen when you introduce someone to the idea that they could be that if they so want to be.
One thing that's happened, Life's popularity has blown up. Next year, they're adding more classes.
To remember those characteristics that we talked about entrepreneurship?
And for the first time ever, they've taken Life to a men's prison, Columbia River Correctional Facility. It started this past spring.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, this class
I'm going to talk about graduation, the plan.
Had 79 applicants for 29 spots.
We're just in this cage where we think that people don't think about us. We think that people forgot about us, and that's not the case at all.
Well, based on the feedback that I've been seeing so far from these stories, our viewers haven't forgotten about these women at all. They seem to be kind of intrigued by who they are and what they're doing.
Yeah, it's been so cool to watch. I mean, everything that I've seen and everything that our social team has been seeing is just saying that these people, these women are really striking a chord with people, and everybody's proud of them for doing all this work. And kind of to that point, we've already got this in-depth web story online. You can see the headline over here on the left, Women in Prison Prepare for Release. And then this right here is part 3 in our 3-part series. So if people can't wait, they can go to kgw.com right now, watch part 3. It's on YouTube as we speak, or they can see it tomorrow night right here on The Story.
And we want you part of the entire conversation, so get on our Facebook page, go on Twitter, use the hashtag HeyDan, let us know what you're thinking. Maggie, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
The story continues after this. Keeping Portland weird tonight is something spotted not in Portland technically, but in Kennewick, Washington. The police department there sharing this picture of some very personalized plates there. I'm pretty sure that's a dry erase board. I'm not 100% sure. Hey, celebrate your God-given right to keep Portland weird and the surrounding area weird. Send us your weird stuff. Go to The Story at kgw.com or use the hashtag HeyDan. Hey, if you follow us on Twitter already, you saw a tweet that we sent out today asking for some questions that you might have for Senator Merkley. We thought we were going to get a chance to talk to him today after the State of the Union. Turns out that necessarily wasn't the case. He just sent us a statement, but we are still going to follow up with him. Don't worry, we're going to talk to him in the morning, so keep sending those questions using the hashtag HeyDan. Just a couple of examples. Samantha writing in said, what steps is Senator Merkley taking to address Oregon's role in climate change and reducing the carbon footprint of the state? Samantha, we will ask him that. Also, someone saying, regarding the State of the Union, why was anybody there, presumably meaning Democrats? Well, some of them did boycott it and didn't show up. Senator Merkley did go, and we will ask why he was there, why he decided not to boycott it. All right, we got a lot of comments off the top from the story that we showed with Nancy Pelosi ripping up the president's speech and Senator Ron Wyden beelining it for the door, maybe looking to beat traffic. You see it right here. Joshua Baker said Pelosi was tasteless with what she did. Democrats can't be happy at all. Dorothy Neal said that she was rude for her position, getting a lot of that. From a conservative Trump supporter, thank you to Ron Wyden for standing during the State of the Union. Oregon is divided, but at least you're trying to see both sides. I was watching you and pleased by your support. Hey, thank you so much for your support of the story tonight. Keep reaching out. We want to have this conversation with you back and forth. Use that hashtag HeyDan. We can be a conduit between you and the questions you have for the people that make the laws for this state, the people who have a real impact on the way you live your life. So reach out. Find us here on The Story. Use the hashtag HeyDan. Let's have a conversation and a good time. Thanks for being with us tonight on this kind of prime time edition of The Story. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 6 p.m. Until then, have yourself a great night and enjoy a little viral moment where Oregon seemed to step right in the midst of something I'm pretty sure everybody in the world is going to be showing on a loop just like this one tomorrow. Hey, that's my Twitter account too. Don't forget to follow me. We'll see you back here tomorrow.